The first time I noticed him was at a local coffee shop I go to often. I was standing in line ready to order my iced chai latte when I saw him staring in my direction from a table outside. I didn't assume he was staring at me at first. There were multiple other women in the cafe that he could have been ogling. Proving me wrong with a ballsy move, he asked me for my number as I walked through the front door.
Iced chai, I see. It's a good choice.
He commented as he stood up from his chair.
So I've noticed you a few times when I've been in the neighborhood. Could I get your number?
Oh, no, actually, I have a boyfriend. Hoping this would get him to back off, especially because it was the truth. I smiled and started walking around him to get to my parking spot a few yards down the walkway.
Relax, honey.
He said as he stepped in front of me, blocking my path.
He doesn't have to know.
I felt a shiver of pure disgust as he paired the statement with a wink. Look, I know cheating on your partner is like a big thing right now, but I'm not into it. Leave me alone. He backed away from me, hands in the air and a dumb smirk on his face. I gave him one final glare before making my way towards the car, his eyes on me every step I took. When I got back to the apartment, I shared it all with my boyfriend Jacob. I told him all about it. Normally he would get upset about it, but move on if I told him there was nothing to worry about. And at first, that was his reaction.
What? Did you recognize him at all?
Not even a little. He said he's seen me a few times, but I've never seen him. That was the part that bothered me the most. He's been undetectable multiple times while watching me. Where else has he seen me?
What did he look like?
Like every other guy, brown hair, taller than me, probably 6 foot or something. He did have a scar on his neck. For some reason, that caught Jacob's attention.
A scar? Was it fresh?
I mean, not really. I don't know what a fully healed scar would look like, but it wasn't red or bleeding or anything. Why?
Don't know. Just a good identifier if he bothers you, I guess.
He looked a little more disturbed after I mentioned the scar, but I didn't drill him about it. It wasn't something I really wanted to discuss further anyway. That first encounter with him was about 2 months ago. Since then, I've noticed him everywhere. The coffee shop, bookstores, the supermarket. I couldn't go anywhere without seeing him, especially when I went anywhere with my boyfriend. I felt like I was going crazy. Every time I'd see him, I'd try to discreetly point him out to my boyfriend. Jacob, he's near the pasta, I whispered. He would always try to be natural, just so he wouldn't scare him away. But every time he would look, he wasn't there. It's like he just vanished into thin air. I could tell Jacob was sympathetic about the situation. He probably thought I was being overly paranoid and imagining I was seeing him. But there wasn't anything he could do if he didn't see him in time. After these 2 months, I started growing tired of myself and my imagination. Jacob hadn't seen him any time I pointed him out, and honestly, I never saw him enter or leave my line of sight. It's like he would just appear, stare me down for a little bit, and he'd be gone. I had to do something to clear my mind. Hey, I'm going for a run, I yelled to Jacob as I was lacing up my tennis shoes.
Don't you think that's not the best idea?
Jacob asked, clearly a little worried about me going on a run by myself. Well, I have to do something. Maybe all I need is a little time to myself to recollect my thoughts in my head. This might just be all manifestations from stress. Plus, I added, finishing up the laces on my left shoe, it's daytime and my path is pretty busy. I'll be okay.
Are you sure? I mean, I can go with you.
I gave him a kiss, hopefully to calm his nerves, but mostly to get him to shut up. No, I need alone time. You have my location and I have my pepper spray. I'll be fine. Love you. I knew he still wasn't fond of the idea of me being alone, but there wasn't really much he could do as I closed the apartment door and headed down the complex stairs. Not even 30 seconds after I got outside and started my run, I felt something tug my left arm, hard enough for it to pop. I didn't have enough time to react as I felt my arms pinned up against a brick and my mouth covered with leather. I tried everything I knew from my self-defense classes I took years ago, biting, kicking, screaming. Deep down, I knew nothing would work against a 6-foot man with a heavy weight advantage. It didn't take me long to recognize the hair and the scar either.
Lily, keep quiet.
He whispered as he struggled to keep me pinned to the wall.
I'm trying to help you.
Help me? I said, my words muffled by his gloves, and I was still trying to free myself from his grip. No progress, and I started to feel weaker as I struggled, ready to accept whatever would happen to me in this empty hallway.
Yes, help you. Stop struggling so I can tell you what's going on.
I didn't want to stop struggling. I wanted to keep kicking and moving to make it harder on him. But I knew in the end it wouldn't work out for me.
Are you going to listen?
I shook my head, his glove still pressed against my mouth. Despite living in fear because of this guy for 2 months, I felt nothing but curiosity in that moment.
Lily, I need you to listen carefully and take what I'm about to say seriously, okay?
How does he know my name?
The man you're dating, Jacob.
He paused, rolling his eyes as if he was trying to figure out how to word what was coming next.
He's not Jacob. Not anymore.
I stared at my stalker for a few seconds, wondering whether or not he was joking. What do you mean Jacob isn't Jacob anymore? I asked as he took his hand from my mouth and let my arms down.
He hasn't been Jacob for a while. Is there somewhere else we could go to discuss this? Talking about this out in the open, especially so close to your apartment? It's dangerous.
He whispered back to me. He looked nervous, his head on a swivel, watching both exits from the alleyway he pulled me in. I'm not going anywhere with you. I mean, you've been stalking me for months, maybe longer. How do I know this isn't some freaky, elaborate ploy to get me to go somewhere alone with you? Why should I trust you at all? Weirdly enough, he looked offended by my lack of trust in him, as if he didn't give me every reason to be wary of his existence. A normal person wouldn't drag someone into an empty alley to warn them about their boyfriend. Curiosity got the better of me, though, and I decided to let my guard down. I'll go with you to talk, but only in public. We can go to that coffee shop on 16th. He shook his head in agreement, still double-checking the alley exits to make sure we were still alone. After a minute into our walk towards the coffee shop, I finally gathered some courage to ask him a question. What's your name?
My name's Chris. Why do you need to know that?
Well, I figured since you knew mine that it would be only fair to ask yours.
Yeah. Fair enough.
After that, we walked the rest of the 5-minute walk in silence. He seemed uncomfortable and jumpy, like he was expecting someone to pop up from the shadows and drag him away. When we finally arrived at the shop, I ordered my iced chai and him an Americano. For some reason, this didn't really surprise me. Jacob had a fondness for Americanos too. Maybe it's a guy thing. So, I started as we found 2 rusty chairs to sit outside. Why do you think there's something wrong with my boyfriend? He sighed and took a sip of his Americano.
I don't think.
He responded as he poured some half and half into his drink.
I know. Have you heard of white lighters?
Yeah, the supernatural healers from that witch show? What does that have to do with any of this? I asked, skeptical of where this was going.
Yes, they are supernatural healers, like guardian angels.
He paused, taking another sip of his Americano.
Do you believe in guardian angels, Lily?
I mean, I guess. I'm a pretty firm believer in the supernatural, so I don't know why I wouldn't believe in them. No way is this man about to insinuate that my boyfriend is a guardian angel, I thought to myself.
Good. Your boyfriend, Jacob, was one. He was yours up until about 2 months ago, when you first met me.
I stared at him over the top of my iced chai, expecting him to start laughing or give me some sort of sign that he was just messing with me. He didn't. Jacob is my guardian angel. That's what you're trying to tell me?
No, not is. Was. Do you see this scar on my neck?
He asked as he pointed to the jagged mark under his jawline. I nodded as I took a sip from my own drink.
Lily, do you know what a dark lighter is?
I would assume the opposite of a white lighter, I guessed.
You would be right. Dark lighters are like demonic stalkers, both on regular humans like yourself and on white lighters. The main goal is to take out white lighters like myself, which is why I have the scar.
Although I was listening, I could barely believe what I was hearing.
Jacob was your white lighter at first. He was sent to protect you, and the best way he could do that was to be by your side, by being your boyfriend. But being a guardian angel creates a big target on one's back.
Okay, wait a second, I said as I snapped back into reality. You really want me to believe that my boyfriend was a guardian angel and that you are a guardian angel? I had to stifle a laugh as he shook his head, staring me down with a serious intensity in his eyes.
Lily, have you noticed Jacob acting weird? Any new scars or bruises or bumps on his skin? Late nights out with some odd explanations.
Honestly, I had noticed that Jacob had been acting odd recently. Ever since I told him about the first time I saw Chris. He never got angry with me, but he'd get increasingly stressed when I went places without him. I assumed out of worry for my safety. But what if that wasn't what he was worried about? I guess I have, ever since I first noticed you.
Exactly. Your boyfriend is the reason I have this scar on my neck in the first place.
I noticed a twinge of anger in his statement, and I really couldn't blame him. I'd be angry if someone scarred me too. So why did he attack you then? I asked. My skepticism was still strong, but for some reason I had a feeling I could trust Chris. Seeing his scar and now noticing Jacob's weird behavioral patterns in the last couple of months.
Look, I'll explain it to you in the simplest way I can. Like I said earlier, guardian angels have huge targets on their back for dark lighters. Some of them want white lighters killed. Plain and simple. Others...
He looked over his shoulder, lowering his volume to barely a whisper.
Others see what some white lighters have to offer. When they're turned to the dark side, however they get them to turn, they use those strengths that white lighters have for their own reasons. Basically, it's good versus evil. Your boyfriend just couldn't defeat whatever dark lighter targeted him, and I guess Jacob had some redeeming qualities. Otherwise, he'd be dead. You wouldn't be far away from him.
So basically this whole time you've been stalking me to make sure Jacob didn't kill me?
No, we've been stalking Jacob. Sometimes I would make sure that you were safe on your own, yeah, but the main focus is him. He's corrupted. But he doesn't have to stay that way. To be honest, we weren't even sure if you guys were still dating when we found out he turned.
Is that why you asked me for my number that day? To see whether or not we were still together?
Yeah, basically. Look, we didn't want to follow you around unnecessarily, and because he was no longer a white lighter, we had no way to track him. You're kind of like our connection back to him.
Everything I was being told started to hit at once, and I could tell that Chris noticed I was overwhelmed. It sounded ridiculous and basically unbelievable, but something in me believed Chris. I had every reason to doubt him and tell him to screw off, that my boyfriend wasn't some supernatural evil being, but how could I believe in that stuff and not believe that my boyfriend could be a part of it? My brain was on overload and I tried to process everything, one thing at a time, but it was brought to a halt when my phone started ringing. Chris stared at me, waiting for me to see who was texting. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and felt my chest tighten. It's Jacob.
Are you with someone? It's been a half hour. Don't ignore me. I know where you are. I can find you whenever I want.
I stared blankly at my phone screen, now covered in texts from Jacob, and wondered what my next step should be. What's the point of taking a next step anyway, now that I know what Jacob is, and that he could find me wherever I go? I realized then that he was probably nearby, stalking me through a window or peeking around a bush, but I know that kind of sounds strange, but I feel like if he was nearby, I could feel his gaze, and I didn't feel anything other than the normal anxiety I had when talking to Chris.
Lily,
Chris said, snapping me out of my own thoughts and back into reality.
what did he say?
He said he can find me whenever he wants. I think he knows I'm with you. I responded, turning my phone screen to him so he could read the texts.
I had a feeling we were out for too long. How long do your runs usually last?
I'm not sure. Not as long as we've been sitting together, I know that. It's been a little over an hour. Chris could sense that I was getting anxious, and who wouldn't? The man that I thought was stalking me was actually after Jacob. And now Jacob is targeting me.
Okay. You're not gonna like what I'm about to tell you. But there really is only one way to fix this.
I didn't like the tone Chris had when he said this. What are we gonna do? Kill him?
We're gonna have to kill him. But don't freak out quite yet.
Kinda too late to tell me that.
Because he's a Darklighter, we have to vanquish him. It's hard to explain.
You're gonna have to try because I'm not too fond of the idea of killing my boyfriend.
I know, I get it.
He continued, seemingly empathetic to my situation.
Basically, Darklighters have crossbows that they use to kill Whitelighters. They have a poison that slowly drains them of their power and then their lives, but they aren't invulnerable to these arrows. It works on them the same way it does Whitelighters. The only issue is, it's hard to get the crossbow away from them.
At this point, I could already tell where this was going.
You're gonna have to be the one to take the crossbow away from him, and the only way to do that is to make sure he knows I'm around.
So, you want me to risk my life and yours to get this crossbow?
Not yours. Although he's been corrupted, I don't think he would hurt you. Not quite yet.
So we're limited on time?
Yes. Which is why I think we'll need to do this today.
Chris and I sat for a little while longer and devised a plan. Basically, it goes like this. I'd bring Chris into the apartment, and we assumed that Jacob would try to kill him with his crossbow. Apparently, these Whitelighters can orb in and out of places, basically like teleportation, so he'd orb behind Jacob and restrict him while I get the crossbow. I'd shoot him, and Chris would heal his body while the Darklighter powers die off, leaving him to be completely human, since his Whitelighter powers can't be restored with this method. After fully developing this plan, we headed towards the apartment and I texted Jacob, telling him that I had stopped somewhere to grab a bite to eat. I knew deep down that he knew I was lying, but I didn't really have any other choice. I couldn't tell him. I couldn't let him know any more than he could probably assume. Despite Chris trying to calm my nerves, I couldn't think straight and my anxiety was through the roof. What if he doesn't live through it? What if Chris has been lying to me this whole time? My worries wouldn't stop running through my head until we arrived at the apartment. At that point, stressing about possible outcomes would just distract me. Chris had to talk me through unlocking my front door, trying to calm my nerves, but nothing would help me settle down. I just had to push myself to do what I needed to do, so I unlocked the door. I just had to push myself to do what I needed to do, so I unlocked the door. All I saw when I walked through the door was the back of Jacob's head slightly above the back of the couch facing the apartment window. Did he not hear me come in? "Hey Jacob, I'm back. Sorry I was out for so long." I called out to him, attempting to sound calm and normal. I'm not sure if I succeeded, but either way, he didn't budge.
Hey, Lily. I was wondering what took you so long.
I knew it was him talking, but from how still his head was, it was like I was talking to a doll. Something was wrong, and I felt like he knew what was about to go down. "What have you been doing since I left?" I asked Jacob. Chris walking slowly behind me.
Just relaxing. Watching the city from the window. I assume you didn't see your stalker today?
Nope, actually. Doesn't mean he didn't see me, though. I said with a fake chuckle. Still no sign that he'd caught on to what was going on. Before I could ask Jacob another question, I heard Chris cough behind me. I turned around to give him a look, and I noticed a small smirk on his face. I'm not sure if he did that on purpose, or if it was truly an accident, but it caught Jacob's attention either way. He sprung up from the couch, his crossbow already loaded, and pointed it at Chris. In not even the blink of an eye, Chris disappeared from my side and orbed right behind Jacob, holding back his arms and making him drop the crossbow. Chris couldn't get out another word with Jacob struggling in his grasp, but he was watching me, waiting for me to grab the crossbow and follow through with the plan. I leaned over, picked it up, and held it to Jacob's chest. Chris told me to aim it towards his heart, since that was the best way to make sure his Darklighter powers would truly be vanquished. I felt like I could trust him. But I knew that I wouldn't be able to shoot Jacob in the heart without feeling immense guilt, even if Chris did fully heal him. Against my better judgment, I still aimed at his chest, closing my eyes and pulling the trigger. I heard not one, but two agonizing screams come from across the living room and opened my eyes. Both Chris and Jacob were lying on the floor, holding their wounds and crying in pain. I couldn't even reach Jacob before I saw the life leave his body. But Chris was still barely holding on, clutching his chest where the arrow had pierced him. I wasn't sure if I was the last thing he wanted to see before he died, but I still went and held his hand as his shirt grew increasingly darker. I knew he wouldn't be able to speak, and frankly, I couldn't either. So I just held his hand until his grip loosened from mine. As I sat there, trying to understand what I had just done, I watched their bodies orb themselves out of my living room, not even leaving bloodstains on the carpet. If it wasn't for me, at least Chris would still be alive. Although I pointed the crossbow at Jacob's chest, it must have shifted when I had closed my eyes and drifted upwards towards his throat. It hit there first, piercing far enough through him to reach Chris's chest, resulting in both of them losing their lives. I know I had to shoot Jacob either way, but nothing will change the fact that Chris died from my own stupidity and cowardice. I shouldn't have closed my eyes. And now I'm sitting in my living room, updating you, wondering what I should do next. I mean, I'm not sure if Chris had any family or if they were even human. But I knew if Jacob's mom stopped receiving messages from him for an extended amount of time, she'd be suspicious. How do you explain to someone that their son died because of some weird supernatural entity taking over his body? You can't, right? I'm sure I'll figure it out someday soon. But as I sit here concluding this, somehow, I feel a little at peace. I feel like I had ended something sinister for Jacob, and I was with Chris as he died, hopefully giving him some peace about his death as well. I know I can't be sure of either of those assumptions, but that's what I'll have to tell myself until I get things straightened out. Hi everyone, it's me, Michelle Renee, but you're welcome to call me Giggles. Thank you so much for watching the video. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to my patrons, Eric Cifuentes, Andreas Anderson London, Lawrence Wallen, Geek Sanctuary, and Melissa Perez. If you want to become a patron today, I have links in the description, also for my Discord or even for my coffee if you just want to make a one-time donation. Thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you in the next video.